Greetings, all. Greetings. My name is Phoenix Jean. I am doing a series called Marriage is a Scam. And I'm doing this series because I had a theory years ago about marriage. And I have been speaking of this for years, saying that marriage is not for women and that it is basically a slave state that she is put in or that she puts herself in for choosing marriage. Now, I'm not judging anyone who wants to get married or who never wants to get married. I feel like it's a personal choice, it's an individual choice and not a societal choice, meaning I don't appreciate the ideal of marriage being pushed that every woman should be married or that every man should be married. It's an individual choice and should not be judged for either. I also feel the same about children, that women shouldn't be pushed into having babies, and neither should men. So, this theory of mine, I decided to look up the word husband and wife because if you look at the opposites of of I guess when it comes to man and woman, there's always like some type of commonality in the word, like man, woman, male, female. But there wasn't a commonality with husband and wife. So I said, that's strange. So I looked up the etymology of husband, I looked up the etymology of wife, and I looked up the etymology of family. And it is nothing that we thought it was, or maybe some already knew, and some are coming to the conclusion that something's not quite right. So I decided to start out with um, this article by Carell Donk, and the title is Marriage is Not a Good Idea, or Why Getting Married is a Very Bad Idea. And the article says, marriage as we know it today has its roots in slavery. This may come to you as a surprise, especially if you're heavily influenced by all the brainwashed in our current authoritarian societies around the world that promote marriage as an ideal form of a relationship between a man and a woman. But if people truly realized where the concept of marriage comes from and what its real purpose is, I'm sure that they would be repulsed by it. Especially women are being brainwashed from early childhood to not only accept the concept of marriage, but to even long for it and regard it as one of the most important goals in their lives for achieving happiness. This is the tragedy of the reality in which we live today, where people are being conditioned not only to accept, but to actually desire their own enslavement. It is a reality where people willingly accept a way of life that works against them on almost all levels and that allows a small elite to easily control and exploit them. Marriage isn't something that's natural, it's an artificial construct. A very long time ago, there was complete equality between men and women in ancient cultures, and there was no concept of marriage. In fact, there are cultures that still exist today where there's no marriage, such as the Masuo culture in the Chinese Himalaya. Imagine getting born and living in such a culture where there was no concept of marriage. In such a situation, you would grow up and become an adult without having even the slightest notion about having to get married and tying yourself to a single partner for the rest of your life. However, in most societies around the world today, the ideal of marriage is literally pumped into our heads by the environment that we grow up in. Especially women get brainwashed with the concept of marriage, which is often also associated with romance and the whole happily ever after fairy tale experience. Growing up with that, it becomes difficult for people to determine later whether desire for marriage is really their own or if it's due to the brainwash. People will often mention wanting to get married out of their own desire and free will, not realizing that it's the many years of programming that they received from their environment that's responsible for what appears to be their own desire. In this way, people are brainwashed into desiring an artificial way of living that will later frustrate their lives and work against them. When that eventually happens, they get confused and don't understand what went wrong. After all, they were living according to the rules approved and prescribed to them by society. And many fail to realize that things didn't work out precisely because they lived according to the artificial social constructs forced upon them by society. Social constructs that go against our true nature and that are designed not in our best interest, but in the interest of a small elite that wants to rule over us. You see, marriage was introduced to mankind thousands of years ago by the gods with the purpose of suppressing and repressing our sexuality. It was one of the measures in a total package of measures that the gods enforced on humankind in order to frustrate and divide them so that they could be more easily controlled, manipulated, and enslaved. If we go back and take a look at the earliest written records that we currently have of civilization, the ancient Mesopotamian text, it becomes clear that marriage was very similar to slavery. Marriage law looked a lot like property law. This is described in a lot of details in the Code of Hammurabi. You just have to consider the fact that the Akkadian words describing a husband, Be'al Asatin, mean owner of a wife. To realize that just like a slave, a wife was considered to be a man's property. A woman had to address her husband with master or lord, just like a slave addresses his master or a subject his king. And to this day, there are still cultures where the words used to describe a husband literally mean owner of a wife. Consider that in the Bible, when God decides to create a woman, he does so to create a helper for the man, later adding that man shall rule over woman. In the Ten Commandments, a wife is also listed among the properties of a man. A woman was considered first to be property of her father, and after marriage, her husband. In some verses in the Bible, the Hebrew words that describe a married woman or a wife literally mean woman with a master. So a woman became the property of a man marrying him and was sold by her father in a way comparable to slavery. The future owner of such a woman would have to pay her father the price he requested for his daughter, and a contract was made detailing the terms of the transaction. This is where the traditions we still have today in certain cultures around the world come from, where the parents of the bride are given money and presents in return for their daughter. These traditions are simply the remnants of the original sales of antiquity, where the daughter was sold to her new owner or husband. It's important to realize that many of the social constructs that we have today, like the modern family, marriage and relationships, etc., go back to ancient Mesopotamia. Many of the details have evolved over time, but essentially we're still stuck with a system of control and enslavement that was enforced upon us by the gods thousands of years ago. If you can imagine the origin and purpose of marriage, and you realize that it was introduced not in the best interest of humans, but instead the interests of gods who wanted to rule over us, it becomes very easy to understand why marriage frustrates relationships between men and women. As mentioned before, it's an artificial social construct, one that encourages us to live against our true nature with all the negative consequences that come with that. A lot of pain and suffering can be avoided in society if people aren't directed to live against their own true nature. Just think about it. Have you ever wondered how a couple that was so much in love with each other at first can slowly grow to hate each other after getting married? Marriage has nothing to do with love. In fact, love is destroyed by marriage. And there's plenty of evidence for that everywhere in society. As we've seen above, in the very beginning, marriage was all about the enslavement of women. Women were degraded to mere slaves and servants, property. Where's the love in that? And today, this is still the case. Married couples still treat each other as their property and consequently severely limit each other. If people truly knew what it means to love someone, they would let them be free individuals. Instead, marriage encourages people to become dependent and thus to give up their individuality. Sorry about that. Independence and freedom. And as I explained before, people naturally want to be free. And any relationship that limits people's freedom will cause trouble. The desire for freedom is intrinsic to human nature. We all are born free individuals. In a relationship where a person's freedom is being limited, it's only a matter of time before they start to rebel against it, often subconsciously. Like psychoanalyst Karen Horney, MD, indicated in the past, people in exclusive relationships eventually start to develop a desire to escape, which results in secret hostility towards the partner. This secret hostility then leads to a secret hate, and this hate continues to develop until it starts to express itself more and more in the relationship. If you truly love someone and want to continue to do so and enjoy their company for as long as possible, you should avoid relationships with them in the traditional sense at all costs. And this includes marriage. Marriage also limits individual growth and self actualization, one of our most basic needs as human beings. You can't grow in a balanced way when you tie yourself to a single person for most of your life, simply because you limit the variety of experiences you can have. You're also forced to make compromises that go against your true desires, and your individuality suffers. It might seem easy to make compromises in the beginning of a relationship, especially when the feeling of being in love is very strong. But as the relationship progresses, eventually it gets more difficult and you start to subconsciously rebel against any perceived limitations imposed on you. Keep in mind that there can never be one person out there that can satisfy all your needs and desires. There are no soulmates and perfect partners. Instead of limiting yourself to a single person who can satisfy only some of your needs, you're supposed to go out and find others who can fill in the gaps. Remember that we're naturally capable of loving more people at the same time, and that humans are naturally polygamist. And that's for a good reason, because variety is key to living an enjoyable and interesting life. From the moment we're born, we're filled with curiosity and want to explore the world and learn. Children want to touch and taste everything in their environment. They can desperately want and play with one toy for a week, then get bored and look for a new one. Adults are grown-up children. So even as adults, we remain curious and continue to seek new experiences all the time. And it may be hard to accept for most people that yes, we do get bored if we spend too much time with a single person, even if this person is the kindest, sexiest, most wonderful person on the planet. It's only a matter of time before you'll get bored, especially if you're stuck with them in an exclusive relationship and have to spend lots of time with them day in and day out. Whether a certain amount of time you're basically experienced, you've basically experienced all there is to experience with a single person, and it simply starts to get old and boring. Eventually, there's nothing left to be curious about anymore. Think of it another way. How would you like it if you had to eat bread with peanut butter every day for the rest of your life? You might enjoy it in the beginning, but sooner or later you would probably want to throw up just thinking about bread and peanut butter. It's the same with music, for example. You might really like a song in the beginning and play it all day long, but after a while, it gets old and you stop listening to it and look for something new to listen to. This is why we have so much variety in nature, and we especially need this variety in our love life. Marriage prevents people from being able to have sexual variety in their lives, and eventually that things, excuse me, and eventually things get boring. Research has shown that relationships between couples usually last between 3 to 4 years on average. After that time, people start to get bored of each other and the relationship starts to deteriorate. And it can get really dangerous when couples get bored of each other, but for some reason, often economic reasons, are forced to stay together, especially when their sexual needs aren't being gratified adequately. Often, quite often, there's a gradual buildup of hate, which can ultimately lead to extreme violence. Don't be fooled by married couples who stay together for long periods of time and appear to be happy. Even way back in the 19th century, it was already clear to researchers that marriages are extremely rare exceptions to the rules. From my own observations, I've seen that in many cases, married couples pretend to be happy to the outside world, but struggle with all kinds of problems in their marriage. They may even be having regular arguments, maybe sleeping in separate beds, maybe cheating on their partners, etc. But for social reasons, they give everyone else the impression that all is well and that they are very happy together, right up to the moment when you suddenly hear that they're getting a divorce. This often comes to a shock to their friends and acquaintances. Since everything seemed to be going so well, but people then realized that was all a big show and find out that things weren't going well for a long time already. Married couples who pretend that everything is going well are simply fooling everyone, especially the youth, who could otherwise learn from their true experiences and could themselves avoid making the same mistakes by getting married. Not to mention the damage that it does or that it is done to children inside such marriages. Very often, it's also the case that married couples feel that they have little choice but to stay together after getting married, even if they aren't in love anymore and want a divorce. There are many reasons for this, depending on the specific circumstances, but mostly it's for social and economic reasons. Apart from the social stigma relating to divorce in certain societies, very often people stay in bad marriages because they wouldn't be able to support themselves financially if they were to live alone. And this is by design, excuse me. And this is by design. Remember, as I've discussed above, marriage encourages people to give up their individuality, independence, and freedom. This weakens the individual, and as a result, they become easier to control and manipulate. Men love it when they can do whatever they want, while their wife has to accept everything because she has nowhere else to go. Authoritarian societies love it when people are dependent, weak individuals who can't stand on their own feet, because then they can easily be manipulated by the state. All things considered, you can only get married for the wrong reasons. If you're getting married for no other reason, for no other clear reason than the fact that you're influenced by society's brainwash that was programmed into you. Wait a minute, let me read that again. If you're getting married for no other clear reason than the fact that you're influenced by society's brainwash that has programmed you to want to tie yourself to a single partner for the rest of your life, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're doing it because you claim to love someone, then you're also doing it for the wrong reason, simply because true love has nothing to do with ownership of an individual. Ownership of another human being and limiting their freedom in any way is wrong. If you're doing it for economic reasons, then you're definitely doing it for the wrong reasons. A lot of women these days essentially behave like prostitutes seeking out the best candidates for trading sex and intimacy with economic gain and stability, preferably through marriage. If you're getting married for sexual gratification, then boy, are you in for a surprise. As discussed in the footnotes below, sex gets extremely boring in marriage until it eventually stops. And you really do not want to get married to anyone before you've experienced them sexually. If you're getting married because you don't want to be lonely or you are afraid to grow old alone and need someone to take care of you, you're also doing it for the wrong reasons. You can live alone, but not be lonely. You can connect with many different people from the opposite sex all the time, as much as you need, if you only disregard the stupid rules in society that attempt to limit you. And you really shouldn't get married to someone just because you're afraid to grow old alone and wonder who will take care of you. It's not right to treat someone else as some kind of insurance policy for your old age. We are heading into a new age right now where the individuality and freedom of every single human being on this planet is going to be valued more and more. When in the process of finally breaking free from thousands of years of enslavement through artificial social constructs that conflicted in every way with our true nature. Right now, we can already see these social constructs starting to crumble to the ground. And this includes the institution of marriage. Divorce rates are at an all-time high, and the younger generation are increasingly starting to avoid getting married in countries around the world. In the USA, for example, single Americans now make up the majority of the adult population since the government began tracking the data 38 years ago. In Holland and the UK, people are less interested in getting married, while divorce rates in Holland and Brazil are at a record high. These are trends that will only continue to pick up speed around the world, especially when the economic reasons for marriage disappear and the sharing economies and research-based economies in the near future. In these new societies, everything will be based on sharing and peer-to-peer models. And that includes our love and sexual relationships. And that is the end of the article. Now, you may wonder what prompted me to research this. And what prompted me to research this is a video I saw by Proverbs 31. And I'm going to share that video with you. One moment.
Nothing that is about sexual liberation is liberating and free and is helping women at all. So where did we even get that concept, the devil, about, oh, being sexually free and fluid is going to help me? You can talk to any person that has lived, that is a woman that has lived a promiscuous life, and they can tell you it is nothing at the end. It was all for nothing at the end. That they were chasing identity. They wanted to be valued. They wanted to be affirmed. And they found that men affirming their body affirmed them, but it only affirmed them in the moment, not for a lifetime. A relationship with God is what's going to affirm you forever. The truth. All I'm saying is the BET Awards is why this ministry exists. The BET Awards is also why a lot of Black women are not getting married. The BET Awards the Black women and artists on those stages are why Black women are over sexualized, seen as sexual objects, most likely to be sexually harassed at work, and so on and so on and so on.
If you are like me, then you love to be organized, but rarely are.
For millions of Black women, many blessed with brains and beauty, finding the right man is proving elusive. But why?
Why do we have such low marital rates? And I'm not talking about Black women marrying Black men. I'm talking about men of all race wanting or desiring to marry a Black woman.
Single, Black, and female. Well, research shows more and more young women of color are having trouble finding that special someone to marry.
Why is it that Black women appear to be undesirable when it comes to marriage? All over, conversations are being had about why Black women are not getting married. According to research, Black American women are the least likely race of women in America to be married. This is a phenomenon. This is a problem. Marriage presents so many benefits, and Black women, we are losing out. Why aren't Black women getting married? I think I've come up with the answer, and I put it all together in my digital ebook. Marriage is for Black women too. In this ebook, you will learn why I believe Black women are not married, the benefits of marriage for Black women, what God says about marriage, and ultimately what we can do as Black women to not only get married, but to stay married. At the end of the book, I have discussion questions for you, your girlfriend, your small group, your church can look at and review so you can reflect on everything that you read. I believe that you're going to get a lot out of this book and maybe some answers they did not know about why the Black woman's marriage rate is so low. For Black women out there that want to be married, have hope. It can happen. Get the ebook to see how you can get married and improve your chances. Please click the link in the description box to get your copy today. I know you've heard about the Houston STI breakout.
2 at 6, an alarming health trend impacting a lot of women across our area. Syphilis skyrocketing in Houston.
The Houston Health Department is calling the sharp rise in cases of a sexually transmitted disease an outbreak.
Of all the cases Houston health officials are seeing, it's predominantly women of color who are most impacted. Nationally, there's been an uptick in syphilis cases, and health officials here say in many ways Houston is no different when it comes to what's happening in many major urban areas across the country right now.
As a large urban jurisdiction, we've got to be really aggressive in our response when we see these kinds of cases because we have millions of people who may be at risk.
Since 2016, syphilis cases in women have increased by 128%. New infections rose from 1,845 in 2019 to nearly 3,000 in 2022. Cases involving women who passed the infection onto their baby during pregnancy soaring from 16 cases in 2016 to 151 in 2021.
To see the numbers rise in this alarming rate really sounded the alarm for us.
Local health officials say they're seeing a lot of co-infections of HIV with syphilis, along with gonorrhea and chlamydia. The health department is working with medical providers and collaborating with its community-based partners to increase awareness of the outbreak and enhance testing and treatment in Houston neighborhoods.
This has been happening for a while, where there's major STI breakouts among Black women in Houston and different parts of the country. Black women having sex with just anybody and getting these diseases. And you know, I've said this before, Black women are more likely to have STIs than any other race of women, right? That's because our image and our behavior is showcasing that we don't have virtue. We'll have sex with anybody. We'll have babies with anybody out of wedlock. We will just have babies out of wedlock, have sex with who we want, you know, promote people like Sexy Red, Meg Thee Stallion, Lotto, Cardi B, all of these women promoting filth as working as agents for the devil. We'll promote that, but we won't promote godliness. We won't promote our families. We won't promote wifehood. We won't promote being chaste. We won't promote that because it's either too hard to do or just because we've never seen it. But it's even never seeing it is not even an excuse at this point because the world is so small. Literally, we have the tools and the opportunities to see it. We can look up videos and content that are going to be helpful for us. We can start making our way to people and women that are godly and that have godly character and that stand out correctly. There was this woman who's a famous commentator who went on the Fresh and Fit podcast, and she talked about her experience there. And the top comment, I will never forget this comment, because that's what I hope I can do for Black women. This young lady said, "I am a young Black woman, and I saw how you were treated. You were respected and revered by the men on that podcast. I've never seen them treat a woman like that, like they treated you, with respect, with reverence, with honor, with grace, with dignity. I could really tell that they respected you, and their perspective of you was different. And I've never seen them do that. I realize now that the way I present myself to the world matters, and how I do that matters. How men will treat me will determine how men will treat me." And so thank you for coming on that podcast and showing me differently. See, sometimes it's not always about talking too. Sometimes we need to see that representation. We need to see how Black women are treated when they are polished, when they're put together, when they're articulate, when they look well, when they're fully clothed, when they have family.
I mean, well, I ain't gonna ask you. That's you later. I can't even put them kind of questions on you.
I appreciate that a lot.
I just know what I'm looking at.
What you looking at?
Something that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, say he who finds. Yeah, finds a good thing.
I know that's right.
Yeah, I'm looking at something that's good. Her grace and her essence of a woman will shut it up. When the essence of a real woman come around, niggas pull their pants up, say, "Man, don't do that in front of her." Then it's naturally will be done it, because her presence of a woman, don't get that response.
Oh, wait.
Get that. And when a lady walk into a room, men straighten up.
See, a lot of people actually do aspire to that. Black women still want to be married. Women in general want to be married, despite what feminists are saying. They still statistically want to be married. I've talked about this so much. I've gone over so many statistics on this channel. You should know everyone by heart at this point.
You are absolutely right.
But what I'm saying is, 60 years of feminism hasn't stopped Black women from wanting marriage. 60 years of feminism haven't stopped women in general from desiring marriage. It is innate in us, because it's something that God wants us to do and have. And all I'm saying is, Black women, we have to understand how important our image is. We have to push away people that are trying to purposely keep us unmarried. At this point, it's demonic. It's always been demonic. But at this point, I think this is a well-executed plan by the demonic kingdom and by the powers that be that's around, corporations, whatever, who benefit from single Black women because we spend the most. I can guarantee you that this, at this point, is something that they're putting together to ensure that Black women are never seen as proper, never seen as wives, never seen as desirable for marriage, only desirable for sex, only desirable for lust, only desirable for a quick pump and dump. But that is it. Because if we were to carry ourselves well, and if men were to see, of all races, were to see us as desirable for marriage, our community would change. Our community would be better. We would be our marriage rate would go up. Our children would be well and growing up in stable homes. We wouldn't be consumers. We wouldn't always be consuming. But we would actually be putting things out there in the world that is good. And we wouldn't be vulgar. Because 9 times out of 10, if you coming from a broken home, you're going to be vulgar, because you're going to place your value in your body. Because you didn't have a father to affirm you. You didn't have a mother who was a wife and that could show you that I didn't have to take off my clothes to meet your father. And your father respects me. Not seeing that makes us as Black women do things to be valued in the sight of men. A lot of people say, well, what if they're just being sexually liberated? But who is that helping? Sexual liberation doesn't help women. It doesn't help women. It's the lust of the eyes. Twerking and gyrating on stage and putting out music about sex, that's not helping women at all. If you look at 60 years of feminism and the sexual revolution, that actually made it worse. More women are mentally depressed. Young women are committing suicide more than ever before. More women are not getting married. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to show your body to get affirmation. Just look to what Jesus did. I already know I'm affirmed, because Jesus literally went to the cross and died for me. I'm affirmed.
100. Exactly.
And if we take that mindset, Black women, this is why I always talk about mindset. If we take the mindset that I am always affirmed, that God affirms me, Jesus affirmed me because of the finished work on the cross, we don't have to look to men and others to affirm us. We don't have to look to material things. We don't have to look to men. We don't have to look to women. We don't have to look to anyone but the cross. That is our affirmation. That is our ultimate affirmation. And so Black women, our perception, the way the way people perceive us matters. And the way you perceive yourself matters. And if you're someone that's just okay with listening to music that's just terrible for our community, and you're someone that wants to aspire to be like a Lotto or a Sexy Red, none of these women are married. All of these women have children out of wedlock if they have children. These women are shacking up. These women should not even be, these female artists are talent. They may have some talent, but they should not be looked up to. They don't even like themselves. All of them have had surgeries. All of them have had cosmetic surgery. All of them have done some body modification. BBLs are in, okay? So many of them are doing things to make themselves look good and desirable. They don't have confidence. And yet you're listening to them and you're trying to do what they want to do. And you're trying to be like them and make your body like them and make your face like them. These people have the lowest self-esteem.
You know, I got a little work done on my body, whatever. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't even know that because you just look so good. That thing about it, if you're going to do it right. Mm-hmm. I think people think just because somebody has surgery, they just encourage everybody else to get it. Like, you need to get this. You don't do that. You be telling me, don't touch your body. Don't touch your legs. I'm telling you, to all the young girls listening, all the women listening right now, I'm telling you from someone who's been there, done it. Find peace within your natural state.
The people who have the lowest self-esteem, I am convinced, are artists, entertainers, celebrities. They have a new look every day. They have a new look every week. They have a new surgery or a liposuction every time. They cannot deal with their authentic self in a culture that is craving authenticity these days. I like Sexy Red because she's authentic. I like Sexy Red or Lotto or whoever because they're real. They're not, though. Their bodies aren't even real. And if you want to say Sexy Red's body is real, okay, yeah, but she's really having children out of wedlock on purpose and promoting filth and debauchery and making Black women look bad. We have to start talking about this. We need to put these people at the bottom, get them off the stage. You will not come up here looking like that, acting like that, behaving like that, because there are other communities where they are looked at as individuals. But in the Black community, even ourselves, we put ourselves in a category. That's why if a Black person doesn't like who other Black people like or didn't grow up like how other Black people grew up, we don't know what to do with them, so we ostracize them. So even us, we see ourselves as a community. We see ourselves as a monolith. And if we see ourselves that way, others see us that way. And so you may say, well, I'm not a Sexy Red. I don't listen to her. I don't promote her. Yeah, but a lot of other Black people do. And other people who don't know about Black people and Black women, they see her and they're like, oh, that's how Black women act. That's the Black community. That's just what it is. And so we need to be protecting our image. We need to be speaking out against these people who are being pushed in our faces. And we also need to pray for their salvation in Jesus' name. Our image matters, Black women. Our image matters.
A man has always wanted to lay me down, but he never wanted to pick me up. And the men that did have real love and affection for me were the ones that never touched me.
This is how the Black community look, man. I'm tired of seeing this all over the world.
Okay, so you guys saw that video from Proverbs 31 University, and then the video after that from with oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot her name. I know she was Catwoman. It's a shame, but what she says about men, you know, it's very sad. The state of heart that we're in. I don't know what the next thing that women are going to do because we're being attacked, especially Black women are being attacked from every corner, every way you look, we're being attacked. So it's interesting to know what would be the next movement that will happen, coming from fighting and just being tired of the attacks. So this was the first of the series, and the next video will be the etymology of husband. And I'm also going to do a reaction video to the video you just saw with Proverbs 31 University. I'm going to do a reaction video to that to be a part of the series. But next, I'm going to do the etymology of husband. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. This is Phoenix Jean. Enjoy.